Okay, so I'm going to be doing onion powder today. I've got from a previous video, I'm doing beef jerky, but I'm using beef heart, and I don't quite have all my trays filled up in my dehydrator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and cut these up because I'm out of onion powder. So I'm going to cut these up and dehydrate them and grind them up and restock my onion powder. So you can use just about any onion. I think these are just regular yellow onions. I've had them for a little bit. I don't cook with fresh onions a lot because I just don't. So what I'm going to end up doing is, and this to me, like, I've been a cook for several years. This is the easiest way I know on how to cut up an onion. Minimal tears, minimal of the gas that these put off. So I cut the top off, just cut it clean off, and if you saw, I pulled part of the skin back. That'll help you in a little bit. And you want to line your knife up as even with the root as you can, and cut it right down the middle. Okay, so you're going to end up with the two halves. And then from there, you want to use that piece that opening that you made earlier. And you pull all of it off in one go. Just like that. And then if you're really good, and this took me a little bit to get the hang of, put your index finger, get a little closer. You want to put your index finger right here, push down with your thumb, and you will pull this part out. And this is the part, like where the root ball is, in that area right there. That's what produces the most gas that makes your eyes water. So you pull that out, and you get rid of it. Like throw it in the trash or compost or whatever as soon as you can. Like get it away from your cooking surface. So I'm gonna do that real quick. Same thing with the other side. Scan it. And it doesn't completely get rid of all the gas smell, but it does cut it down quite a bit. So I'm going to cut these up into squares. Nothing real fancy. So this is how I cut onions up. You don't want to cut all the way through because then it'll hold it together and it makes it a little easier to manage. And then, so you have uniform sizes, you want to cut about halfway up on the onion. It just makes it easier. You get a more uniform piece, and then from there, you just cut down. That. And then the upper part, like this top part, you can just cut it up just like anything else, and it'll, so yeah, and then just break these up, and they're all about the same size. They're pretty uniform, which if you work in a restaurant, that's what you're shooting for. You want to make everything the same. So I've got everything cut up. You want to try to spread these out as best you can, so they're not quite touching each other. I mean, if they're still stacked up, it won't be the end of the world, at least not with onions. But it will take them a little longer to dry because they'll be stuck together. But yeah, I used the plastic trays that came with my dehydrator, and the main reason for that is normally I wouldn't. But as these dry, they'll shrink up, and they'll fall between the grates that are normally on here. And I'm gonna have beef jerky drying, I'm gonna have jerky drying on the bottom two racks. So I don't want the onions falling onto the jerky and getting dried on. So, and this actually works out in favor of my jerky too. because since I didn't add any onion powder, there's not going to be any onion flavor to it. But since I'm dehydrating the onions and the jerky at the same time, the jerky will kind of pick up some of that aroma, I guess. So since I'm doing jerky on this, I'm going to have it set to do jerky. So it'll be upwards of between 145 and 160 degrees is what I normally do. So once this is all done, we'll come back and I will show you how to grind up the onions. So this is the next day of doing the onion powder. They all dried up pretty well last night. You want them dry enough that you can kind of crush them up in your hands. I don't know if you can see that real well. But there's not really a whole lot of give to them before they break. So what I'm going to do now is get all these off the tray and into a bowl I have right underneath here. So because I use these plastic trays, they may stick to it just a little bit, but if you run your fingernail or whatever, like a spooner, should be able to come off fairly easily. But, and when you get to this point, you can do one of two things. You can just grind it up as you need it, or you can grind up the whole thing. You can use these, they can rehydrate, and you can use them in like a soup or whatever. Mainly just for flavor, because once they rehydrate, they're not gonna look, exactly like the onion did when you cut it up the first time. So I got everything out of the dehydrator trays. I've got not a ton of onion flakes, but I only used 2 onions, so it's wasn't going to have that much to begin with. Next, what you can do it a couple of ways. I'm going to use this, but you're just going to grind it up into as fine a powder as you really can manage. You can use a mortar and pestle. I don't have one. I just have the cheapest coffee grinder that I could find. I just use this for like spices and grinding stuff up, making powders. Because if you use coffee, if you actually use it to grind up coffee, the oils from the coffee bean will get into everything else that you put in it. So unless you really, really like the flavor of coffee in every bite of food that you make, you wanna have separate coffee grinders. And this was, I don't know, $8-10. I got it right after Christmas, so there was a bunch of sales and that kind of thing. So I didn't get it for a whole lot. I would like another one at some point, because let's see if I can show this. That's all the plug that that's all the cord that I've got to work with. And so every time I use it, I have to get out my extension cord. So just what you're going to do, you don't want to fill this completely jam-packed full, but you want to get a decent amount in so you're not spending the rest of your day grinding onions. But yeah, just I usually have to smack mine pretty hard to get the powder off the lid. And you want to slowly pull this off, and you've got your onion powder. And this is pretty well mashed up, or ground up. so I'm probably not going to have to hit this again. Sometimes it just depends on what you're grinding up. This particular coffee grinder won't get all of it, so you get little teeny tiny chunks. But yeah, I'm going to do the rest of this. So I've got everything ground up. Didn't take real long. With a mortar and pestle it may take a minute, but it shouldn't be too bad. So what I'm going to do now, and hopefully not make a gigantic mess. So I put all the powder on parchment paper because I was going to try to put it in here, and I succeeded, kind of. Okay, so that's about how much I ended up with. There's still a little bit more on the parchment paper I might scrape off with a spoon in a minute. But yeah, it's not too bad. It's not incredibly consistent. Like you can see, this is a little coarser than the rest of it, but it's not too bad. This will be a little bit different than what you buy at the store because this doesn't have anything in it to reduce clumping. So you want to keep this really dry. If you have a silica packet that you get with, I know they come in pepperoni in a pepperoni container bags, and a lot of different food products have them to kind of keep moisture. They pull in moisture. If you've got one of those, throw it in here, and that should help with the clumping. I don't think it'll solve the problem, but it shouldn't make it worse. But yeah, and this is also going to be a little more concentrated than what you're going to get at the store also, because it doesn't have that caking. I think it's silicon something that they put in to prevent caking. But yeah, since it's more concentrated, just kind of, you should be tasting your food while you cook it anyway, just so you get all your seasonings right. But you kind of gotta be a little bit careful with this so you don't overdo it. So, hope you like what you saw. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you again next time.